Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Mike here at Game From Scratch, and Blender 3.6 should release later on today, and there is a lot to be excited about in this release. What we're going to do is jump in and check out, say, 5.5 of the coolest new features, at least in my humble opinion, starting with number 1, and that is jiggling pudding. What you're seeing here, this is a demo of the new simulation nodes. Now, these were originally going to be in Blender 3.5. They got pushed back a bit, but they are here now. You can basically think of this as adding awareness of time simulation to the geometry node stuff. It's going to open up a whole lot of Houdini-like things, such as the jiggling jello you see in front of you. Now, this is just one example. There are plenty. I'll show you where you can grab these demo files, but probably a more impressive one is this simulation right here. So this is showing simulation nodes in action, what they are capable of doing, and this is going to open up Blender to a whole new world of, special effects, particle systems, and so on. And you can sort of see how they work over here. So this is a geometry node-based system, but what you've got now is this simulation input, and you've got things in here like the amount of time that's elapsed. You've got a velocity value over here that is a parameter, and so on. And it's using a traditional, geometry nodes approach. It's just this is being called every frame of the simulation. It allows you to do things over time that previously would have been quite complex, and then the output comes into a simulation output. So the ultimate heart of the new simulation nodes is this guy right here and this guy right here. These two nodes bookend all of the calculations. So these are going to be calculated every pass through the node. They're going to do all of these different things, and then you're basically taking the geometry output from this simulation node and doing stuff with it. In this case, instantiating it on a point. So it is a traditional geometry node setup. It's just, again, these two new nodes here for the input and output of simulation nodes. It's going to open up geometry nodes and Blender in general to a lot of things that traditionally could only be done in something like Houdini. Now we move on to cool thing number 2, and this is viewport compositing. Now, this was actually added in Blender 3.5, but they've added a whole lot more functionality to it. They've added a number of new nodes that were previously supported now in here, unsupported are now in here. You've also got new features including bicubic interpolation, repetition along a single axis, and support for multi-layer EXR images. So what exactly is viewport compositing? Well, previously, something like this cycles renderer, you could only see it when you actually rendered things, but now what you can actually do is come in here and turn this guy on. So you've got a compositor option over here, camera, or always. And see here, this is another demo. I'll show you again where you can grab all these things, but this is doing a half screen. So this side over here is using the compositing effects here, and it's a node-based system for applying to your final rendered image. So you see here, we're doing things like setting the exposure, adding some glare, doing a lens distortion on this half of the image. So we can do things like this, and you immediately see the results in your editor. So you now actually view these things. You're going to notice over here, Viewport Compositor setup not fully supported. So this is just a Cycles demo that showcased compositing, and it just pretty much worked. But there's still certain things that are missing, but with the addition of about a dozen new nodes to it, it's getting more and more complete to what the compositor does. So here you can see we've got a glare here. Let's just see what the glare effect would be. So you can jack that up and down. We've got lens distortion, like so. So you've got the ability to do all of these compositing tasks that previously could only be done at the render stage, and now you can actually do them directly in the viewport. Again, as you can see from this error message over here, it is not one for one, but it is pretty close. So if you're doing compositing work, you can definitely at least now preview your result and see it directly in the viewport. For the people working on the compositing stuff, this is going to be a massive time saver. Now, the original stuff was added in 3.5, but we got a ton of new node support and new features were added in this, as well as a new transparent pass, which contains alpha blended surfaces so they can be adjusted in the compositor and later mixed with opaque passes. Now we move on to cool thing number 3, and I can't actually demonstrate this to you, so instead I'm just going to show you some boring text and explain it to you. And the reason I can't demonstrate it to you is I do not have an Intel GPU, nor do I have an AMD GPU. But if I had either of those things and I was running on Windows, there is now experimental support for AMD Raytracing acceleration on Windows. It's using HIP RT, which is for now Windows only, so that is definitely one of the limitations, so no Linux support right now. It's also degenerate triangles may cause crashes or bad performance. Darn you, degenerate triangles. As well as shadows and hair are not currently rendered correctly. But if you are on an AMD GPU, you now again have experimental ray traced acceleration on Windows. And on the Intel side of things, you're getting hardware ray traced acceleration for Intel Arc and data center GPUs. For those 3 people out there that bought an Arc GPU, hey, great news for you right there. Now this next thing is going to require some of my own artwork. This is my masterful arm that I drew here and set up a rig on it. This is all grease pencil stuff. So let me go out of pose mode. You can see what I'm talking about. So this is a grease pencil. I set up vertex groups on it, and I have set up a rig for handling it. So if I come in here with the rig, again, I could come in and we can animate it like so. Nothing really special going on here, but the key thing here is this new tool here. And the interesting thing is Grease Pencil 2.0 is coming with Godot, with Blender 4.0. So there were supposed to be new features added, but this one definitely made the cut, and it is quite cool. So let's go ahead. We'll select our guy over here. So let's go out of pose mode into object mode. We will select this guy over here, and we will go to weight painting. And what you see here, so again, I have these different sets going on. And now you have this new weight painting tool here with a couple of cool new features. First off, you've got this ability to paint the weight like so, and you can add and subtract in. So if I wanted to do a little bit more, I could have it so the bicep also controlled this bit of the arm. Now, I may not actually want to do that. So instead, I want to have it kind of, so when I'm moving between the bicep and the forearm, like I have this setup going, well, I may want to actually have it be a bit more blended than this. Well, we've got two new tools for doing that. We've got this guy over here, which is a blur tool, like this, and then we've got the average tool, which is I think what you would use most of the time. So it's going to blend between the two groups here, and that all can be controlled using, you can have it auto-normalize, so as it crosses between these things, I want to work on one, it will automatically carry over to the other. So if I go over here and I make a change in the forearm type so if I come up here, we go to add, and I add this back over here, and I've really mangled up my stuff here. So now when I go back to the bicep, it'll automatically subtract it from the other side if you have that auto normalization turned on between your bones. So this weight painting functionality with the new blur and average tool should make setting up 2D rigs a lot cleaner and nicer. It should just basically improve that process overall. Next, we're going to talk about things on the importing side. Now, this first one isn't going to appeal to too many people, but there's enough stuff floating around that I think some of you will like this one, especially in the world of game development. This guy is back. So you can now do an import with 3ds Max files. So if you want to import old school 3ds stuff where there's a ton of resources out there, they added that back in. It was removed. There was a bit of an outcry over it because it was actually needed, and it's now back in. So if you want to import 3ds files, you can. On top of that, let's get rid of this guy right here because I got to sacrifice at least one cube per video. We'll go here, File, Import. We've got improvements to this guy right here, Stanford PLY. Let me just show you the standard process here. So I've got a Dragon polygon mesh. I downloaded this, about 44 megabytes in size, and you're getting an idea of how long it takes to open. Now, this is using the traditional Python importer to open it. The PLL file, it's basically a university created version of like the Wavefront object file with like newer and better features. You're not going to find a ton of stuff in PLI format, but a lot of like maybe scanned data is often stored in PLY format, and you're getting an idea how long it takes to import a 44 megabyte file as this goes on. All right, so there we go. That is how long the current Python-based editor takes to bring it in. So now I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice a Dragon. Now we're going to go ahead, File, Import, and now we've got this new guy right here. We've got this PLY experimental. Now this was rewritten using C++, and it should be better. So let's see if it is. All right, so go ahead and import that one. So the last one was about, I don't know, 15 seconds. That one is about 1.5 seconds. So you get massive speed improvements with the PLY importer. So if you're working with PLY files, you're definitely going to love that new importer. And in the final cool new feature, I'm going to get a bit of a twofer in here. First off, what you see here, there is this new base mesh library available. This isn't really core to Blender itself, but you can download this one and import. It's a number of different styles, cartoony and realistic base meshes to work from, including faces, etc. So if you want to use the new asset system, you can import this one in and have some base meshes to work from. But instead, I'm going to use this guy over here. And the reason why I'm going to use this guy is to showcase some of the new UV tools. So let's go over here, the UV editor. Let's grab this guy, go into edit mode. And what you're going to see here, you've got a couple of new options around the UV packing. First off, the UV packing engine itself was dramatically updated. Should have much better performance on large meshes and support for non-square meshes. So definitely improvements across the board. The other thing you're going to find, there are a number of new packing options. So you can pick a shape for the packing. I'll show you that in just a second. There's also a new option for merged overlap, where overlapping islands stick together during UV packing, and a new UV packing option to pack to and the original bounding box. So let's go show you one of these new features here. So for example, I have this island over here selected. I say I was working with this shape, which by the way no longer needs to be square, which is a nice and well overdue feature. Go to UV, we'll go to pack islands like so. And what you're gonna notice if I go with bounding box here, we have a number of different options for controlling how the bounding box is going to work, including obviously the brand new merged overlapping, and then you have these new options here for setting the boundary shape, exact shape, convex hull, etc. And then if you select this guy, it is going to pack it into the underlying bounding box. So definitely some improvements when it comes to UV islands as well, and UV packing in general. Now, I mentioned throughout the video, I got some of these resources from the Blender download sites. If you're interested in checking out the exact demos I used, go to theblender.org, go to demo files, and then here is the new base meshes that you can grab. And these are the 2 new simulations. These do require Blender 3.6. That is this release. And then one other one I used in this example was the compositing example, available down here, this guy right here. It's not fully showing all of the nodes from the compositing effect, but it is darn close. So you can see how Viewport compositing is really going to be a bit of a game changer. And of course, Blender itself should be available for download right now, blender.org. Head on over there, download the newest version, and let me know what you think. What feature are you most excited about? What did you like the best? And yeah, that's it. I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.